Hey everyone, what's going on? Finally getting around to making a video about this obviously scripted Will Smith smacking Chris Rock at the Oscars story that was real big on March 27th. And I'm kind of glad I waited because there's a bunch of interrelated narratives that are important to this, such as there's a lot of symbolism with peacocks, and this peacock symbolism is seemingly pointing me back to this old narrative that I was following with Kanye West and Slipknot. And I'll leave this playlist in the description so you can watch it if you're new. But a big thing with this is that in 2015, Kanye West sang the song Bohemian Rhapsody by the band Queen at Glastonbury on June 27th. And the reason I think this is even more important is because we recently, on National Peacock Day, we had the death of the Foo Fighters drummer named Taylor Hawkins. And the Foo Fighters are the reason that Kanye West performed at Glastonbury in 2015 because Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters had broke his leg, and then they replaced him with Kanye West, or they replaced the Foo Fighters with Kanye West. And there was this big petition going around that because nobody wanted Kanye West there, and then he ended up doing this terrible job of Bohemian Rhapsody, and then Corey Taylor of Slipknot called out Kanye West a few days later, and there was this little beef and so on. And think about Corey Taylor, and think about Kanye West in relation to Taylor Swift, and think about Taylor Hawkins. And even further, Taylor Hawkins, I even pointed out in my post how I think it was connected to the band Queen and so on with this Kanye West narrative. And of course, the drummer of Queen is named Roger Taylor. And if you recall, back on January 26th, of 2021, the drummer from Slipknot, Joey Jordison, died. And he died on Roger Taylor's birthday. So the drummer from Slipknot dies on Roger Taylor's birthday, and then Taylor Hawkins ends up dying, 123 days before Roger Taylor's birthday. And Kanye West equals 123, and so on. I'll cover a whole lot of this as we move along. I'll come back and re-explain a lot of this, but that's why I know that it's important to Kanye West. And a big thing with Kanye West I've talked about over the years is that narrative with Slipknot is important to Tisha Bob, and it's also important to the number 86. And, I've been talking a lot about the date August 6, 2022 this year, and that's when Tisha B'Av begins. So that's the first day of Tisha B'Av. So it's interesting that Will Smith would slap Chris Rock on the 86th day of the year, in light of a lot of these things that are going on, and the peacock symbolism. And if you go and look at when Will Smith did this, think about how the new Fresh Prince of Bel-Air show, the show called Bel-Air, came out this on the same day as the Super Bowl. And it came out a span of 43 days, or also 1 month and 15 days before Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, right? And of course, if you write out Bel-Air, it equals 43 and 115. Just like the span of days from Bel-Air coming out. And Bel-Air just so happened to debut on the app Peacock, right? Think about Chris Rock, who is on NBC's Saturday Night Live, and NBC has the Peacock logo. And we recently had the story of the Chinese airline that crashed, and the Chinese airline had the peacock on it, right? I don't know if you can see it. My internet's going to load, but this is a peacock symbol on this airline. And remember, on March 25th, which is National Peacock Day, the St. Peter's Peacocks in the college basketball tournament, they ended up winning and going to the Elite Eight, I believe it was. Nobody thought they were going to get that far. And their mascot just so happens to be the peacock. So anyway, growing up as a kid, I watched a ton of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? The original show. And what I know from this show is that when they're like in college, the mascot is the peacock. They go to like a fictional, I think it's University of Los Angeles, a fictional college. And a big thing even takes place at the Peacock store, because I think Carlton's like the manager there. But I remember this episode where Carlton is the mascot of the Peacock, and he gets kidnapped by the other team. And then Will has to fake to be the peacock or whatever, to do the peacock strut. and get the football team motivated or whatever it was. And I just remember this episode. I was like, what are the odds, you know? And there's a whole lot more to this, but I'm just pointing it out that, you know, there's an episode where Carlton even gets Kate, you know, captured, and he's the Peacock and so on. And in this episode, if you go watch this episode, Will Smith even makes a joke that he escaped from the police because he pretended that he was Sidney, however you say that guy's name, Poitier. Well, I pulled up a video so I could pronounce it properly. Poitier. Sidney Poitier, the first black person to win the best actor at the Oscars, was this guy, Sidney Poitier. And the reason that Will Smith said that in this episode, he said that to the cops or whatever, he escaped the cops by saying that he was Sidney Poitier's son. It comes from this movie called 6 Degrees of Separation that Will Smith was in. And the plot of the movie is this guy who pretends to be Sidney Poitier's son. Well, let's find it here. So this movie right here, Will Smith was in this, but then he makes that joke in that Peacock episode about this show, right? And then this Sidney Poitier guy, he ended up dying on January 6, 2022, at the age of 94, and this was the 94th Oscars, and then Will Smith goes on to win Best Actor, and this was the first African-American guy to win the, you know, Best Actor. And this guy also died 80 days before the 94th Oscars, so he died at age 94, 80 days before the Oscars, which are also called the Academy Awards, right? Academy Awards equals 80, so he dies 80 days before. And if you write out Best Actor equals 103, and he died 103 days after Will Smith's birthday. And if you write out his name, it equals 183, and Will Smith smacked Chris Rock 183 days after his own birthday, right? So it was all linked up to the Sidney Poitier guy, dying at the age of 94, just before the 94th Oscars. And then, of course, in this Peacock episode, Will Smith, you know, makes the joke about how he's Sidney Poitier's son, and that's how he gets away from the cops. So anyway, since there's all this Peacock symbolism going on, and Rambo even talked about this, right? This is where I even saw this, was Rambo was talking about the Chinese airline. He also mentioned how Katy Perry has a song called Peacock, right? And there's more to this as well, but it's interesting that Katy Perry was just in the news for having that wardrobe malfunction, right? Katy Perry in the news. Katy Perry, and I think she was even singing the song Teenage Dream, right? And I've been following a big Dream theme as well, but I'll skip over that for right now, but it leads back to the Kanye West stuff, because that Kanye West narrative was linked up to Freddie Gray, who died in connection to Freddie Mercury. And Freddie Mercury died the same year that the movies Drop Dead Fred and the Freddy Krueger movie, Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, came out. And then Freddie Mercury of Queen ended up dying later that year. But when I was following this big narrative with Kanye West and so on, I mentioned how Wes Craven was important, and then Wes Craven ended up dying on the same day as the VMAs in 2015, and a whole lot more. But think about dreams in regards to Freddy Krueger and Wes Craven and so on, right? Robert Englund is the actor who plays Freddy Krueger, and think about the band Queen and England in relation to Queen Elizabeth and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and so on. But anyway, I knew that if there was something important to peacocks, it had to be connected to this music teacher that was at my school. And I never had him as a teacher, but he was there when I was a teacher. His name was Mr. Fett, and he's kind of an exotic guy. He's all over YouTube. He has this humongous website. He's like very well known in the peacock industry. Like he's got like this huge website. He's been on Jay Leno, all kinds of stuff. And everything about this guy was Peacocks. And I believe he's even my daughter's music teacher for a couple years. He left not too long ago. But I knew there had to be something important to this guy. And when I looked him up, if you go to his website, pfowl.com, I think is what it is. Let's see if I can pull it up really quick. Pfowl. See if that's the website. Yeah, it's this big Peacock Information Center website that he has, and you go to his website and so on. It's a whole bunch of stuff here. He talks about how he's on Jay Leno and all kinds of stuff. He was actually on Jay Leno for playing the clarinet, but this guy, just all about peacocks, right? And I knew there had to be something important to this. But when he was on Jay Leno, he was on a segment called "Does This Impress Ed Asner?" And it never really clicked in my brain. But when I was reading about the Oscars this year, on Wikipedia, it talks about how they didn't pay tribute to these actors, and one of them was Ed Asner. So that meant Ed Asner actually died just before this. And when you look up Ed Asner, he was from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and he died on August 29th. So this guy from the Mary Tyler Moore, Ed Asner, he dies on August 29th. And I'm thinking, what are the odds that this Peacock guy is important to... He was on the segment of Jay Leno called "Does This Impress Ed Asner?" And August 29th is also the same day that Kanye West released his album Donda. Remember? And this was also the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and his album Donda, the first single on it, it's called Hurricane. Plus, in gematria, the word hurricane equals 123. See if I can pull it up here. Hurricane in these Francis Bacon ciphers that I always talk about. Hurricane 123. Donda 123. Ed Asner 123. Kanye West 123. If you look up Jay Leno, his birthday just so happens to be April 28th. If you go from April 28th, just type it out really quick, April 28th to 8/29, it just so happens to be 123 days. 123 days. The word just Leno equals 123 as well. And, what's even more interesting is think about the Foo Fighters drummer who just died, Taylor Hawkins, and he died... I said that he died 123 days before Roger Taylor's birthday of Queen, right? 123 days before Roger Taylor's birthday. Well, look at Jay Leno's birthday. It's April 28th. And recall remember that Nandi Bushell girl from South Africa who challenged Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters to a drum off and so on? And notice what her birthday is. She shares a birthday with Jay Leno, of all days. And what's even more interesting is that if you look up this girl, she challenged Dave Grohl, and then he responded on none other than August 29th. But it was of the year 2020. What is the date? August 29th, right? 8/29. The same day that Ed Asner would die 1 year later. Remember, she played with Everlong with the Foo Fighters 3 days before August 29th, on the same day that Kanye had the listening party for his album Donda. What else is really interesting about this 10-year-old girl being the drummer for the Foo Fighters is that with my Peacock music teacher guy, Mr. Fett, I remember years ago that he also got one of the students to go on Jay Leno. And it just so happened to be in January. It was January 7th, I think it was. January 7th of 2005. He had this girl named Megan Mitchell at the time. She's now married. He got her to go on Jay Leno because she could do circular breathing and she could blow. I don't exactly know what that means. She could blow the same note for like 10 straight minutes or something like that. So she got to go on Jay Leno and do this trick. And what's so interesting about this girl going on Jay Leno is The same weekend that Ed Asner died, I actually DJ'd her wedding. I DJ'd her wedding on August 28th. So the day before Ed Asner dies, I DJ'd this girl who Mr. Fett, the Peacock guy, got to go on Jay Leno when she was a 10-year-old girl, right? So she was 10 years old. Nandi was 10 years old. You know, there's something very interesting about how that links up. And it's just like, what are the odds, you know? And she did it, excuse me, she did it in 2005. Right? 2005 was the same year of Hurricane Katrina, right? So she went on Jay Leno in 2005, the same year as Hurricane Katrina. It was also the same year as the second Michael Jackson child molestation case, right? And Jay Leno just so happened to be one of the people that was involved in the Michael Jackson trial too, right? So Jay Leno, part of the Michael Jackson trial in 2005. The same year that girl gets on Jay Leno. The same year of Hurricane Katrina. You know, it's pretty interesting. Plus, the reason it's even more interesting is because August 29th just so happened to be Michael Jackson's birthday as well. Michael Jackson's birthday was August 29th. And once again, in relation to the royal family, think about Michael Jackson, who's the king of pop, right? King of pop. Then we got Kanye singing the Queen song. And funnier yet is, if you go to Zach's blog, he connected the death of Ed Asner to the death of Prince, the singer. And because Prince's brother had died 2 years before in the same city and so on Michael Jackson's birthday. But remember, the singer Prince, he died on Queen Elizabeth's birthday in 2016, right? And then they colored Niagara Falls purple, and, you know, we had the song I Would Die For in the letter U, 4, and the letter U is 21, 421. He dies on 421, the Queen's birthday. Niagara Falls is where his ex-girlfriend Vanity was from, and she died earlier that year. And, you know, but just think about Prince and the royal family. And also, just before Prince died, there was that football player named Will Smith who died. And he played for New Orleans, right? Will Smith. He just so happened to play for the New Orleans Saints. And he was born in Queens, of all places, right? So just think about how this is interrelated to this narrative that I'm following. And he died on April 9th, and then last year we had Prince Philip die on April 9th. And this is an important number to Queen Elizabeth I've talked about, because her sister and her mother both died in 2002. It was right after 9/11, but they died 49 days apart, and then they both got buried on the date 4/9. And then Prince Philip would later die on 4/9. And Prince Philip died at the age of 99, and this is the 99th day of the year, in the year that Prince Philip died. And, of course, in Francis Bacon gematria, the word queen just so happens to equal 99, and she became the longest reigning British English monarch of all time on the date 9/9 in 2015, just after the VMAs and after the Kanye West narrative and so on. But notice the word queen also equals 123, also 145, and 829, like August 29th is the 145th prime number. That's interesting. Never saw that before, but the word queen, 123. The word prince, also 123. And if you write out Charles, right? Prince Charles, her son, who will become king if she dies, Charles equals 123. Another connection to this king and queen and royal stuff is, think about, you know, Jay Leno, and think about Johnny Carson, who hosted the Tonight Show before Jay Leno, right? And he was known as the king of the night show, right? The king of the Tonight Show. And look when he died, January 23rd, 123. And his birthday was even October 23rd, which, you know, in numerology, that's even like 123, because 0 doesn't count, so it's like a 123, Johnny Carson. And, you know, currently, the host now is Jimmy Fallon, And the interesting thing about Jimmy Fallon is that he was born on 9/19. And this was the day that Chris Rock supposedly got coronavirus in 2021. It's also a day after Jada Pinkett Smith's birthday. And Alfonso Ribeiro, who plays Carlton on the original show, his birthday is like September 21st, and then Will Smith's is September 25th. So some interesting, all them birthdays really close together, but 9/19, if you go back and look at some of my old playlists, yet again, I have a playlist about the Queen Elizabeth, and I mean, for years I have been following Queen Elizabeth and the date 9/19 because YouTube gave a bunch of my videos copyright strikes, and they were showing me the numbers 262 and 9/19, and it happened on 9/19 in 2014, and just forever I've been talking about that video. I don't know where I have a playlist in here somewhere. I'll leave it in the description, but I have a playlist in here somewhere. YouTube coding stuff or something like that. There it is right here. But I mean, for years I've been talking about this video where they gave me a strike on the date 9/19, or my video that I put out on 9/19 of 2014. And it's just a date I've been following with Queen Elizabeth like crazy. So I just find it interesting that the current host of The Tonight Show was born on 9/19. I feel like there is a connection there that I don't fully grasp. But another thing with this Ed Asner guy, so he's famous for being on the Mary Tyler Moore show, right? And then just think about how this whole Chris Rock and Will Smith thing, it all began with the joke about G.I. Jane, right? And G.I. Jane is played by Demi Moore, right? The actress Demi Moore. And then we got Mary Tyler Moore. We just had the Duke guy win the award, Wendell Moore. And Wendell Moore, he shares a birthday with Jada Pinkett Smith on September 18th. But if you look up the episode that this girl was on that I DJ'd for her wedding on the same weekend that Ed Asner died, if you look up the episode that she was on, the other people that were on were Emmy Rossum and Michael Moore. So it's interesting. Michael Moore would be on there. Plus the girl from The Day After Tomorrow, right? Or Shameless, too. But I think about The Day After Tomorrow. I think about hurricanes and global warming. Think about New Orleans. Think about Kanye West in New Orleans. And George Bush doesn't care about black people. And Michael Moore. Michael Moore also, doesn't like George Bush. Talked about George Bush being very important this year because he's going to be 76 years old on the date 7/6, and he's a member of Skull and Bones, and Skull and Bones equals 76, and it's the year of the tiger, and tiger equals 76, and it's linked up to, Sylvester Stallone, who's also going to turn 76 years old on that day. Plus, you also have that film Focus that Will Smith is in, where he programs the guy with the number 55, right? And of course, in Gematria, Will Smith equals 55, right? Will Smith, 55. That's why when they did that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion and they had that whole beef with him and Janet Hubert, the mom on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that reunion came 1 month and 25 days or 55 days after Will Smith's birthday. And it was also 1 month and 25 days before Janet Hubert's birthday, which is also 55 days. So, Will Smith 55. But that movie Focus, they programmed the guy with the number 55, right? And there's a whole bunch of interesting things with this because if you go from Jada Pinkett Smith's birthday, 9/18, it's a span of 55 days before Demi Moore's birthday, right? 2021. Just want to show you real quick. It's a span of 55 days, also 1 month, 25 days, just like Will Smith. And that Peacock episode that I'm talking about, it was season 4, episode 16 of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Season 4, episode 16, 416. which is 5 months and 5 days after Demi Moore's birthday. And this only sticks out because for years I've also talked about Will Smith and how his full name equals 416, but they've now changed it on Wikipedia. They changed it on January 14th to where his name is no longer Willard Carroll Smith Jr. It's now Willard Carroll Smith II. Just pointing out. It used to say Junior here for years. I have like tons of blog posts where it said Junior, and they just changed it on January 14th, which just so happens to be Dave Grohl's birthday, right? Dave Grohl's birthday. I'll come back and explain some more of this. I'm getting off topic, but I forgot Will Smith had this song called A Nightmare on My Street too, right? Like the play on Freddy Krueger and so on. But just think about think about it in regards to the dream theme. If you watched my previous video, I've been talking about all this dream theme. And if you go back to August of last year, right around the time of Kanye West releasing Donda and so on, that's when that dream theme really began. We even had the guy from the Everly Brothers, and they have that song called Dreams, 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 and a whole bunch of stuff, right? But recently, Zach even had a dream, he said, of where he did an interview with Jordan Maxwell, and then Jordan Maxwell died. And I even had this crazy dream with the angel Gabriel, and the angel Gabriel showed me the numbers 6 and 4. And this is very interesting to the peacock symbolism, because if you look up the peacock, Rambo has it here. There was also some video I watched on YouTube with this girl. She explained it really well. But there's an angel in the Yazidi, or however you say it. I don't know what it is. Yazidi tribe. And it's a peacock angel named Malek Taus. And supposedly, the important day with this Malek Taus, this peacock angel, is the first Wednesday of Nisan. And that just so happens to be on the date April 6th, 4-6, or 6-4. That's the first day of Nisan this year. Or the first Wednesday of Nisan. So, it's interesting, Wednesday, Woden's Day. It's the day important to Mercury, right? Freddie Mercury. Let me just come back and let me pull up some posts here that will make more sense to this, because if you go to my last video, I talked about this dream theme, and I'll leave some links in the description but this dream theme was all pointing me to my uncle who died on the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. And if you go back and look at my old posts about my uncle who died that day, the big number, I said, the important number that they was trying to show me with that number was 310. And, he died the same day as the Philadelphia train wreck. And then we had recently got that story about the Philadelphia train wreck, Brandon Bostian, the engineer or whatever, how he was found not guilty. It's like 7 years later they come out with that story, So I thought maybe the date 310 would be important. And then on the date 310, there was a train wreck just 19 miles away from my house. Like, I've never heard of a train wreck in my entire life around here. And a train wrecked, and it had the word tiger on it. And the same day that I released my book, I had synchronicity with the train that had the word tiger on it, and there's some other interesting things, but it all led me to this dream theme. And where is this? I know I had a post here where I talked about, I had this crazy dream one night that the angel Gabriel was like trying to show me something. It scared the crap out of me, honestly. And I can't even remember how I woke up early in the morning and wrote this blog post, but there was some crazy dream that I had with the angel Gabriel. Like, I was like going down the highway, and it was like icy or something, and I couldn't slow down. And then all of a sudden I ended up in this grocery store, and it was like on a giant hill, and I was sliding down like Mario Kart or something. And I saw this door on the side to the left, and I went in. And when I went in, it was like a dark room, and there was this light in the floor. And I went over to like look in the floor or whatever, and all of a sudden this like object appeared behind me holding like a book in its hand. And I didn't know what the hell, like it scared the crap out of me. And then like the book was wrapped in plastic or something. And I remember the book like ripping open, and then that being was trying to go into this hole, and it wasn't going to tell me what was in the book. And I was like half asleep, and I yelled something. I don't know what I yelled. Like, just tell me, let me fucking see it or something. I don't know what I said. And I feel like I yelled it out loud, but I don't know. I was like in between sleep and awake. And then I was like, man, I don't know why I yelled that or whatever. And I woke up and I was like, what in the world? And I went back to sleep, and you know how you like go back into your dream? When I went back to sleep, I realized that it was the angel Gabriel, and it was the book. When you opened the book or whatever, it showed me the number 6 and 4, and 6/4 was the day that my uncle Mike was born. And also, when I was in high school, I had a dream that my friend's dad would die in a car wreck, or he died in a car wreck, and then the very next day, her dad died in a car wreck. And then in September, I learned that her mom was actually a psychic and a bunch of stuff like this. I have videos on it, but 6/4 is important to Amtrak because Amtrak equals 64. But I started thinking maybe it's connected to April 6th, 4/6. And 4/6 just so happens to be this important day to the Peacock angel, because the Peacock angel, Malek Taus here, if my thing will pull up, says the Yazidis believe the Malek Taus is the representative of God on the face of earth and comes down to earth on the first Wednesday of Nisan. And the first Wednesday of Nisan just so happens to be April 6th, right? That's what I'm talking about. So April 6th, 6/4, 4/6. And if you read out Gabriel and Francis Bacon, it equals 269, just like the word peacock equals 269. And April 6th leaves 269 days in the year. So it just makes me wonder, if there's something important to that day. Also, Satan in the Fibonacci, but I always say phi, but the Fibonacci cipher equals 269. And think about, it's interesting, a lot of people believe that Satan was actually, Gabriel is who gave Muhammad in Islam. He's the one who translated or told him the Quran, basically. And many people believe that it was actually Satan and not Gabriel. And same with this whole peacock thing. A lot of people think that this is actually Satan and not a good angel or whatever, So it's just interesting how they all have these connections to the number 269. But April 6th is also 147 days after my birthday, and my name equals 147, and this big day I keep following is August 6th, and that's the day that leaves 147 days in the year. And it's also 8 months and 28 days after my birthday, August 6th is. And that's interesting because if you ever watched the show Manifest about the missing plane or whatever, the big the big number is 828. And a big thing in that show is all about the peacock. I have to go back and rewatch it, but I remember it's a lot to do with the peacock. So I wonder if that show is going to come out again soon. But I know there's a really important thing about the peacock in that show. And it's all about 828, and that's 8 months and 28 days after my birthday is August 6th, this big day I'm following. But it's also a span. If you go from my birthday to April 6th, it's a span of 148 days, and the word train wreck's 148, so. And if you go from April 6th to August 6th, it's 122 days, and train wreck equals 122. These other things I've talked about are important to the train wreck symbolism, like San Francisco and Pope Francis all equal 122, so. Golden State, 122. There was a train wreck. Remember, Merle Haggard died on 4/6 of 2016, I think it was. And he was linked up to train symbolism as well. And there was a train wreck like in Kansas on Pi Day that year. And, in regards to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, for years I've talked about how Wilt Chamberlain, the basketball player, he went to Overbrook High School, the same high school as Will Smith, and then he died in Bel Air. And, think about his name, Wilt, and then Wilt and Will. Fresh Prince of Bel Air. They're both from West Philadelphia. He dies in Bel Air, but he played for the Kansas Jayhawks, and now they're in the championship game. And that championship game is going to be in New Orleans, so just something interesting. I don't know. But Merle Haggard, he was synced up to all that train symbolism, and because like his ninth and his 23rd albums had a train, involved a train, and the train wreck symbolism was all about 923, like in the movie Trainwreck. Amy Schumer's character is 9 years old in the beginning, and the rest of the movie takes place 23 years later, and LeBron James is in that movie, and LeBron James equals 923, and the Philadelphia train wreck happened at 923, and Pope Francis came to America on his 923rd day as the Pope, and so on. But another reason I think that Merle Haggard, like the old country guy, is just, it seems important because I just found out about the death of this other old country guy that's from around this area. He's really popular. Whenever I DJ, someone always asks me to play a C.W. McCall song, and like, I'm not really into it, but I don't know. This guy's from, I think he has a song about like Pisgah, Iowa, and so on. It says he was born in Audubon, but I don't know. There's a lot of like older people who like this guy, so it's interesting that this guy would die. He's kind of in the Merle Haggard era. And I even connected Merle Haggard to the movie Haggard with Bam Margera back in 2016, and they just had the new Jackass movie just came out and a bunch of stuff. So we also too. I know I'm getting way off topic, but just in regards to this whole thing with Nissan and so on, a big thing with August 6, 2022 is that it's Tisha B'Av this year, and 2019 we were following Tisha B'Av like crazy as well, and that was the year that was important to Slipknot playing at the Iowa State Fair, linked up to the Kanye West narrative, and so on. But during Tisha B'Av of 2019, SummerSlam was held in Toronto, and this year SummerSlam just so happens to be held in Nissan Stadium in Nashville. Right, just pointing this out here. But SummerSlam is really important to this huge narrative, but it's going to be held in Nissan Stadium in Nashville, and WrestleMania 38 actually it began on yesterday, on Saturday, which was the first day of Nisan on the Jewish calendar, or the Hebrew calendar, and it was at AT&T Stadium. Think about AT&T, who made 911 the emergency dialing code in 1968, and a whole lot more, so. And WrestleMania, like the WWE, they decided to get rid of their WWE network, and now you can watch all of the stuff on Peacock, right? So I know that there's a relationship here with how that works, right? This comes during the first of Nisan, and then SummerSlam's going to be held in Nissan Stadium. So definitely watch for the SummerSlam this year. What date is that even? Was that International Tiger Day? Nope. July 30th. I need to look more into that, but remember Hulk Hogan got his revenge against Earthquake in Philadelphia at the Spectrum. Whatever, I'm not going to go into it, but Spectrum reminds me of like colors and peacocks and the color spectrum, but this narrative really gets very deep too, because think about Will Smith and how Will Smith was in the Suicide Squad, and it was with Margot Robbie, who also plays Harley Quinn in the Batman movies. And in relation to Nashville, remember the RV Christmas bombing that was in Nashville? It was by the AT&T Center, or the AT&T Batman building, and I learned about that in a post where I talked about how it was connected to Harley Quinn. But think about how they're comparing this Chris Rock slap to Batman. Then you got Will Smith, who's in Batman, or he's in Suicide Squad with Margot Robbie, And Margot Robbie is also Sharon Tate in the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And recall back when they had that Fresh Prince reunion, it happened on 11/19 of 2020, just before, was that just before the RV Christmas bomb? Yeah. And that's the day that Charles Manson actually died in 2017. And all this is kind of interrelated, because Will Smith, before they changed Will Smith's name in Gematria, his name was Willard Carroll Smith Jr., that equals 416. And think about how I'm talking about season 4, episode 16 of The Fresh Prince, and how it is a, the Peacock episode. But Charles Manson also equals 416. And I think that's why they did that reunion, because it's synced up to Margot Robbie. And Margot Robbie equals 416 in the Jewish cipher. Just interesting, right? 416. If you go from Demi Moore's birthday, my kid is screaming down there like no other. He must have got in trouble, but if you go from Demi Moore's birthday to this slap, it just so happens to be 4 months and 16 days. And I'll explain why it's important, too, in a second. Why January 14th is an important day, they would change that. But if you go back to 2020, just before that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion, that was when Alex Trebek and also Sean Connery had died. And I talked about how there was that big relationship to James Bond and this whole big thing, and how I mistook MI6 for M16, which would be 416, and Alex Trebek was all about the number 416 in relation to my uncle, who died in connection to the Jeopardy theme in 2016. I know it's a lot to take in, but I had thought that there was something important to the date 416 because of this, and the number 416, and I was watching it last year, and we got the death of the actress Helen McCrory, who they said was mostly known for Harry Potter, but she was actually in the James Bond film called Skyfall. And Skyfall is important to the Batman shooting of 2012, because during the previews of the Batman movie, they played a preview for Skyfall, and it showed the word Aurora on the building in China, and then Aurora, Colorado supposedly got shot up later that night. So on 416, this lady from the movie that's in the movie Skyfall would die. And I was talking about this big narrative, but back when Chris Rock got coronavirus on 9/19 of 2021, it was right after the death of Norm Macdonald. And of course, Norm Macdonald was also important to that narrative with Alex Trebek and Sean Connery because of Celebrity Jeopardy on Saturday Night Live. And Chris Rock, he was later, a few days later, Chris Rock had coronavirus, and it was linked up to that. But I pointed out how the actor in James Bond is Daniel Craig, right? Daniel Craig is the James Bond actor. And the word Craig, if you look it up, it actually means rock, right? And think about The Rock also in wrestling, but the word Craig also means rock. So, Alex Trebek would die, Sean Connery dies, it's all synced up to this Batman narrative. Then we get the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion on Charles Manson's, death day. And it's all linked up to these numbers 416. Then we get the RV Christmas bombing that was near the Batman building in Nashville. And Nashville is where SummerSlam's going to be held this year. And, of course, WrestleMania is at the AT&T stadium or whatever in Dallas, or Arlington. So there's this related connection. But in relation to 416, last year I talked all about the number 416 with Will Smith, because recall right before WrestleMania 37 last year, we were going to get at WrestleMania, we had the match of Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. And think about how Will Smith moves in with the Banks family, and, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and he moves in with the Banks family. Then we get Sasha Banks fighting Bianca Belair in WrestleMania 37. And I can't remember what was going on. There was something to do with Toronto right around that same time as well. Oh, I can't even remember it all, but I'll leave a link in the description because there was a connection to Toronto with the two Royal Rumble winners. Like, was it Christian and I can't remember what it was, but there was a connection to Toronto. But I pointed out Toronto equals 416, and Toronto's in the 416 area code. And recall that the big Tisha B'Av event in 2019, that big day with Slipknot and Kanye West and so on, that was the same day that SummerSlam was held in Toronto. So I know that there's a relationship here with how it all links up to SummerSlam and how it stems back to the Batman shooting. I'm not fully aware of, like, I don't know how to explain it that well because there's a lot that goes along with it. But the reason I think they changed Will Smith's name on Wikipedia on January 14th is because I actually went to my first ever WWE event in Omaha. It was a SmackDown on January 14th. And, that's also Dave Grohl's birthday, but I went to my first ever SmackDown, and I had synchronicity with Mark Wahlberg that day. And the same day that we got the wrestler, we just had a wrestler die that's linked up to the NWO and Hulk Hogan, right? What was his name? Scott Hall. The very same day that he died, I was writing up a blog post, and I had to go up front and start running the register, and I noticed there was a guy who looked like Mark Wahlberg in there, and I couldn't figure out, I was like, that's crazy, like, there's a guy who looks like Mark Wahlberg, and I was trying to figure out, like, why this guy looked like Mark Wahlberg and so on. And I went back and looked at my old post when I went to SmackDown, and I had synchronicity with Mark Wahlberg that same day, so I'm just pointing it out. I don't know the full meaning with this either, but Mark Wahlberg, he's somehow related to this. And I wonder, like, Scott Hall, he was born on the same day as Kamala Harris. And recall that Mark Wahlberg met Pope Francis in 2015 when he came to Philadelphia, right? Think about Philadelphia once again with Hulk Hogan. Think about the NWO and Scott Hall and Hulk Hogan. Think about how, they keep mentioning New World Order and stuff. Like Joe Biden keeps talking about the New World Order. And, Joe Biden also met Pope Francis when he was the vice president when Pope Francis came to the United States, right? So, and he followed Pope Francis around, and he even went to Philadelphia when Mark Wahlberg was there. And think about Hulk Hogan, too. His birthday is August 11th. August 11th is the day that Tisha B'Av was when SummerSlam was held in Toronto. That was on Hulk Hogan's birthday. So, Hulk Hogan, there's something very important to how that all links up. And then Scott Hall. This is right after I had talked about Truth Social and how it was linked up to Kamala Harris. And then, Scott Hall, of all people, he dies on, or his birthday is Kamala Harris's birthday. And what did he die? 4 months and 22 days after his birthday, and Kamala Harris equals 422. His debut was on the anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge, which was really big to the Tisha B'Av narrative in 2019. So once again, it just seems to all be pointing back to August 6th, to Tisha B'Av, or August 7th even possibly, but August 6th. That's the day I don't know, there's something that's just so important to that day. Plus his name's 218, and WrestleMania 38, it was synced up to the movie They Live as well. And the Truth community was coded to the movie They Live. And also with Ronda Rousey and Roddy Piper, right, in the movie They Live. And last year was the 33rd anniversary of the movie They Live, and then we had WrestleMania. But this year, WrestleMania 38 and They Live equals 38. WrestleMania 38 was held 2 months and 18 days after Ronda Rousey's birthday, which was also the same day that the Year of the Tiger began. And of course, They Live equals 218. Scott Hall equals 218. August 6th, the 218th day. 5/27, the anniversary of the Golden Gate Bridge, that leaves 218 days in the year. I swear that's why that Cy Man Dan guy all of a sudden just made a video about Zach too, and he chose the video from February 18th of 2021, 218, right? And this number connected to the moon, and his name equals 218 in Jewish, and the Jewish ciphers. And once again, think about Tisha B'Av and the Jewish ciphers, and how Tisha B'Av equals 9/11 in the Jewish cipher, and how it's to celebrate, or, to remember the destruction of the two temples in history that both were destroyed on the 9th day of the 11th month on the Hebrew civil calendar. Think about how 9/11 had the two towers. So, just seems, it's relevant. That his day would equal 218. He chooses a video about Zach and the number 218. And then, it's all about the moon. And Zach's been connected to the moon forever, born on the same day that Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon. And his name's 170, like the word moon equals 170 in Jewish gematria. And, the Jewish calendar goes by the moon, and a whole bunch of other things, They identify with the moon. Tisha B'Av begins at night, right? Sunset, when the moon comes out. But, so I think that's why. I really think that's why they changed Will Smith's name on Wikipedia on January 14th, the same day I went to SmackDown, right? SmackDown. Think about that. Slap and smack of Chris Rock. I know it's weird. I know it seems weird, but it's almost like sometimes I think they change things just so I'll see it, so I'll understand the narrative, But in relation to that, they did even change it like perfectly to him too. Like it was 2 months and 13 days before this slap of Chris Rock, and think about how Bel Air came out on 2/13. And it was also 255 days before Will Smith's birthday. And if you write out Willard Carroll Smith Jr., it also equals 255, right? So they changed his name to the second, 255 days before his birthday. I mentioned how Lizzo was going to be hosting Saturday Night Live on 4/16. And then Lizzo, of course, came out with a clothing line or something. Just saw a story about that earlier. There's all kinds of stuff here. Triple H also announced his retirement from wrestling. And Triple H was important to WrestleMania, what was it? The one in San Francisco in 2015, right? Where he was dressed up like the Terminator. And that's when Ronda Rousey originally came into the ring with The Rock. And then The Rock came out with that movie, San Andreas, right? That involved the destruction of the Golden Gate Bridge. Just, a month after that. And in the very beginning of the movie, they even flashed the date of the Golden Gate Bridge on someone's license. The Rock's the helicopter pilot, right? Then Shane McMahon was in a helicopter crash, and then Kobe Bryant would later die in the helicopter crash on Shane McMahon's birthday or something like that. Or The Rock's father's... Try to think. The Rock's father died on Shane McMahon's birthday. And The Rock's father was born on Vince McMahon's birthday. And then Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash like a week later. Smack. I even talked about how I thought Bruce Willis might be important to this with Demi Moore, because that's his ex-wife. And he also has this alter ego and a music album called The Return of Bruno. And, think about how it was like, we don't talk about Bruno, right? So he has this album with an alter ego of, his name's Bruno, and it's called The Return of Bruno. And a big thing was that they had that Encanto song, We Don't Talk About Bruno, at the Oscars. And We Don't Talk About Bruno equals 416. And, then Bruce Willis gets aphasia. What are the odds? Bruce Willis. It's funny they put a story right here about a super yacht right below it, because the whole reason that I was even talking about Kanye West leading up to the death of Taylor Hawkins, it had to do with having a Little Yachty song stuck in my head, and then and then in my post about Lil Yachty, it had to do with Kanye West and so on. And then the very next day, we got this story about a Russian man, or a Ukraine man, trying to sink a Russian yacht. And I was like, what are the odds? Little Yachty. Then this Ukraine guy's sinking a Russian yacht, and he did it on February 26th. And we got the story in like towards the end of March. You know, like why are we getting this story the next day after I blog about Little Yachty? You know, but aphasia equals 55. Will Smith equals 55. Ashton Kutcher, Demi Moore's other husband, right? The one from Iowa, Ashton Kutcher. His name equals 55. You should look up Ashton Kutcher here. I mean, Ashton Kutcher shares a birthday with Chris Rock. It's like, can you believe this? Ashton Kutcher, February 7th. He shares a birthday with Chris Rock. So, Demi Moore's other husband outside of Bruce Willis is Ashton Kutcher. Well, and the Moore guy, whatever his name was. But what are the odds? He would share a birthday with Chris Rock. Then Bruce Willis has aphasia and he's out and so on. And Bruce Willis also credits Will Smith for saving his life after he got divorced, right? Will Smith saved his life after he got divorced to Demi Moore. There's an article right here at the Star. My internet's not loading. But what are the odds? He would credit Will Smith for saving his life. And he was also in a movie called G.I. Joe with The Rock in 2013. And then, to top it off, you also have Will Smith teaching this boy how to slap named Chris back on November 11th at some King Richard question and answer thing, right? And he teaches this boy named Chris how to slap. And November 11th is Demi Moore's birthday, G.I. Jane, right? What are the odds? It's like, how ridiculous. On her birthday, he teaches some kid named Chris. Think about Punk'd and Ashton Kutcher, too. Punk'd. They're punking the whole world with this ridiculous, stupid story. And once again, I know it's important because we just got this story about the Manson family member being denied parole, too, right? This lady. They used the same picture from 2017 because this story also came out in October of 2017, like a month before Charles Manson died. We got the same picture and the same story that this lady was denied parole. And I was following a big thing with Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling and how it was synced up to Charles Manson. And then we just got a story about Colin Kaepernick saying how he can play football still. You know, it's like this whole narrative. There's something to do with the Charles Manson narrative. And Charles Manson's also linked up to Slipknot because, Slipknot, their very first album, they actually do the Charles Manson quote, the whole thing, I think it is sick, or whatever. The person talking about Charles Manson, the whole thing, I think it's sick. The whole thing, I think it's sick, or whatever, right? They would start their first ever album off with a Charles Manson reference. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Like, what are the odds we get this story right after the Will Smith thing? And I'm talking about how Will Smith is connected to Charles Manson, But Katy Perry's wardrobe malfunction. She has the song Peacock. There's a whole bunch of other interesting things that are going on. Where there was my daughter's best friend's house burnt down, and some guy actually burned it down. And the night before, I actually talked to him at the bar I DJ'd at. Never seen the guy before in my life, but he talked to me for about 15 minutes about how he wanted to play guitar with me and get my phone number and all this. And later that night, he went and burnt down someone's house. It's like, oh man, but I'm just going to end the video here. I'm starting to get off topic. I can't remember how to organize what I'm talking about here, so. Plus, I got my kids screaming and everything else, so. Maybe I'll make it. I might make a shorter video talking about Bruce Willis. Maybe make like a 5-minute video because this Bruce Willis and this teaching this boy how to slap or whatever. It's just so ridiculous, you know. So have a good one. Peace.